Welcome back to the Summer Reset series. I'm Monica. I'm a therapist and I own my own private practice. And today I want to talk all about small business finances. And to guide us today on this topic, I have Danielle Hayden. She is the CEO of Kickstart Accounting, which is actually the business that I use for my bookkeeping. Danielle has been doing this for a decade now. She's worked in corporate finance and she now focuses her expertise working with female entrepreneurs by helping them grasp their numbers for sustainable profit. So, we're going to uncover the essential financial numbers that every business owner needs to know, how to leverage those numbers to set your goals like a seasoned CEO. And we're going to discuss also why investing in healthy spending can lead to increased profitability. So, I'm so excited to talk to Danielle and to jump in on all things business finances. Let's go ahead and start the episode. All right, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so excited to have Danielle here. As I told you guys, Kickstart Accounting is who I've used since I first started my business. And I'm really excited to have Danielle, the CEO, talk a little bit about her business and just how she helps entrepreneurs really get into the weeds of budgeting, seeing what their financial metrics they should be looking at. So Danielle, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me here. This is my favorite thing to do is help entrepreneurs fall in love with their numbers so that we can use it as a tool in our toolbox and we can all get over our anxiety around numbers and money because we all have it, but it's an incredible tool if we can learn how to use it in our businesses.
Absolutely. I think one of the first things whenever I first started, before I even went full time into my business, I said, I need to delegate the bookkeeping. I have no idea what to do. And I rather have someone who knows instead of wasting my time trying to figure it out and trying to figure out all the numbers. And I love that when we first started, really there was this conversation about where all the expenses. Because I think we started in September and you had to look back like the whole
Yeah.
year to get me caught up.
Yeah. So that's usually what we do with our clients. So in order to file taxes for the year, you really need to have everything in your QuickBooks. So we use QuickBooks Online for our clients. And we really need to have all the transactions. So all of your money in and money out of throughout your accounts, we need to have that all in one place so that you can file your tax return at the end of the year. And so you can have a super clean and clear picture of what your business is doing. Now, when we call it a catch up. When we do that catch up, I call it laying the foundation, right? Like you can't build a house on a swamp. Like it literally, fundamentally does not work. And so when people say to me, I tried to build a budget, but I couldn't, or I couldn't follow it, or I didn't know how to even get started. So budgets don't work for me, air quote. Well,
Hmm.
it's not that they don't work. It's that we have to create the foundation before we can start to even think about creating a budget. And bookkeeping, I call bookkeeping this like magic vehicle for everything else. Once you have bookkeeping in place, right? Like once you have accurate financial statements, that's when then you can start to add on tax planning. That's when you can add on budgeting. That's when you can start to talk to your financial advisor and building wealth. But we have to make sure we have clean and accurate bookkeeping first so that we can then start to think about doing the budget.
It was something super scary for me at first. And I'm like, what? I guess there's shame sometimes associated with like, oh my God, they're going to see everything that I did wrong, right? What would you say to someone who's like just starting off and they're like, oh, I don't know if I want someone to see all of those numbers and just what I've been doing kind of off the cuff? Because as entrepreneurs, we just kind of start on our own without, again, like laying down the foundation because we basically just go with what we think is right.
Look, what you just said is so common, right? Like that's why we exist. There's so many business owners who become a business owner, become an entrepreneur, and a lot of times almost like on accident, right? Like a lot of us didn't necessarily go through school thinking like, I want to be a business owner when I grow up. Like a lot of us have a desire to help people. And then you start helping people, you start building, and all of a sudden you realize, oh my God, I have to do all this business stuff too. right? Like I have to file my taxes. I have to find insurance. I have to think about benefits. I don't know. You have to think about all these other pieces of the puzzle. And so what you're going through is so normal. And I would say just find a team that has like a zero judgment. So at our company, we have a policy both internally and externally of no judgment. And I call it like the big mama bear hug. I have a team of women who work for us who love our clients. Like my team, when I sit on a team meeting, I just literally sit there thinking, I am so lucky that I have this group of women who absolutely love our clients. Like they are so passionate about helping you as a business owner grow your business because they know that as you grow, you are making an impact in your community, your economy, the people that you serve, you're helping their families. Like we get to touch so many lives. And how cool is that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So finding a team where you know that there's going to be no judgment. I'll never forget the first year that I did my tax return. Can I tell you?
Mm-hmm.
Tell you
Yeah, yeah.
that?
Share that.
Right. So I had been working as a CFO. So I knew that I should have bookkeeping in place. I knew that I should be paying myself more. Like I knew all the rules. And I got busy. Just like you get busy. The shoemaker's shoes, or the shoemaker's kids run around without shoes. I had forgotten to do our bookkeeping. And we got to the end of the year and I threw everything together. And it was this hot summer day. Now I have natural curly hair. So it is like, I'll never forget, super humid. I got this big curly hair, 2 young kids at the time. So like the air is sticky, the car is sticky. I just feel like a mess. And I walked into Joe's office. Now, Joe is my family's tax accountant growing up. And so I walked into this office. This man had not redecorated his office since I was a child. Like, paneling on the walls. It was so funny. Now, Joe sat there and shook his head at me. My God, like shook his head at me and told me what I should have done and called it my little business.
Oof.
Yes. He shamed me so much that I walked out saying, I will make sure that no other woman ever has to feel this way again. So I just say all that and find a CPA, find a bookkeeping team that's going to allow you to come in and they're not going to judge you because we're all human and there's no place for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I love that when you guys do put in emotion, we're like talking about, especially when I'm talking to like my bookkeeper that I'm assigned to, it's always kind of like matter of fact, but also really highlighting like the strong points in the business. Like, okay, you're doing this amazing. Like, this is like where we want, this is where maybe, we could like improve or something,
Yeah.
but it's never out of a place of like, oh no, you shouldn't have been doing that. You just, right? Like the shitting all over yourself,
Yeah.
which never helps, right? Like criticizing yourself never helps us to really figure out the next steps and how to make a change.
Yeah. I mean, we celebrate the wins and we commiserate with clients when things aren't going well, right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes things aren't going great and we don't want to sugarcoat it, right? Like we want to look at like what's working, what's not working, what should I keep doing, what should I stop doing? So the power of bookkeeping and the ability for you to be able to look at your numbers, again, it's a tool, right? So like the tool can be used to support your growth and to support how you move forward and how you show up in the world.
Yeah, now that we've like, okay, so we've laid the foundation, we found a perfect team. We're like kind of up to speed now with our bookkeeping. Let's talk about budgeting, right? So what are the things like the basic principles for you that you feel when it comes to like budgeting for small business owners? What would that look like? You walking a client through budgeting or being mindful of certain things in their business?
Yeah. So I think there's two kind of options for budgeting. There is a single budget, or there's ongoing forecasting. And they're a little bit different. And I'll explain the differences. So a budget is a static plan. So you take a time and like a stamp in time. So I'm going to plan out the next 12 months. I'm going to map out my income, the growth that I would like to see in my business. I'm going to map out my expenses. Now, I believe every dollar in our business should have a job. So building a budget is giving every dollar that you're about to spend over the next 12 months a job. So that might be, I'm going to pay for Google ads. And so now those dollars have a job in Google ads. I am going to hire an admin team. Those dollars have a job to support you in doing what you're doing. So in the budget exercise, we're giving each dollar a job. Now, I can go through the process a little bit more, but I just want to explain the difference between a budget and forecast first. Mm-hmm. So the budget is a single time exercise where you do it one time and you plan out the next 12 months. Now, the cool part about a budget is that your bookkeeping team will then send you your financials compared to budget every month. So you're putting out a plan into the world. And what we see too many business owners doing is like, yeah, here's my plan, but I tuck it away.
Oh, well.
May or may not happen, but I put it into the universe. We have to keep looking at it. Like, how did we do compared to the plan? And we can look at that every single month when we look at our financial statements. When we do that with our clients, we do it via the snapshot. So it's the snapshot is a document that walks our clients through at a high level, their numbers, and comparing it to the budget. Now, forecasting is like the next level. So when we do this with our clients, we consider this like the CFO package. And I hear everybody in their head be like, not big enough for a CFO. Because we count ourselves out before we ever count ourselves in, right? How often are we counting ourselves out? What we did, we said, every single woman, every single business owner deserves to have access to these tools. So we work with clients, regardless of the stage of revenue that you're at, and we grow with our clients. So you can get a CFO no matter how big or small you are. The idea is that you want to continuously be planning every month. So every month you're looking at the next 12 months. And back in my corporate days, we called this a forecast. And so every month you have a static budget. You have that document that you planned that first time. But then every month you're re-updating it with the information you know now, because life changes a lot in 1 year.
And your financial goals change too, right? Yeah. Like if you're trying to buy a house, or if you're trying to open a second, location in your business or whatever, like things like change ongoingly, or you change your rates.
Yeah. It just changes so often. So the forecast allows you to keep changing with it. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, that absolutely makes sense. And as well too, because businesses also increase their service pricing. And so that you're having to look at your budget too and to be like, okay, what's going to happen, right? Like, am I going to continue with that person? Am I going to change things up, or, what would that look like? Or is it not a big deal and we can, continue working with, the providers that we work with. Yeah. I love that too, because especially as business owners, like, our money tends to fluctuate. It's never around the same. I mean, before our call, we just talked about how, this summer is pretty much kind of a slower month for both of us, as opposed to January. For me, it's like the best time. I'm sure for you too. Like everybody wants to like New Year, new me.
February.
Yeah. So I love this kind of like forecasting. I had never heard of that like terminology before.
Yeah, it's so fun. It's such a fun exercise. Again, it's a tool, right? So like a lot of people are scared of their finances, and I just want you to know that there's no pass or fail, right? It's not the report card. It's a tool to help us plan and re-gauge where we want to go and how we want to get there. Now, everybody can build a budget on their own, or you can do this with your bookkeeping team. So if you're going to build a budget on your own, and I do have a template for our listeners. So if you go to kickstartaccountinginc.com/budget, I do want to make sure I give that as a gift to anybody who's listening so that you can build your budget. However, if you want to build your own budget, you can take your QuickBooks account and run your profit and loss for the last 12 months. So there is a report just called Profit and Loss by Month. You'll run that report for the last 12 months. You're going to export that into Excel. And in Excel, you're going to create the columns for the next 12 months. So you're going to add each month for the next 12 months. And here's where you get to play in Excel and you get to play with the numbers. So the first step is to look at, what are my sales going to be? So maybe I plan on growing by 10% over the next year. So you can add in the numbers along your revenue line to grow by 10%. Now, a big mistake I see business owners making is they say, I'm going to grow up by 10%, and then they don't map how they're going to get there. How are you
Yeah.
getting to 10%, right? So we need to map out our spending so we know how we're going to grow by 10%. Now, if we are going to grow by 10%, are you servicing all those clients on your own, or are you building a team? And so in each line of your income statement, you need to allocate the dollars that are going to help you hit that revenue goal. So you'll want to start with your advertising and marketing, then move on to your operating expenses, payroll, your facility costs. So you're moving your way down the income statement, making a plan, giving every dollar a job, so that then once you've built out the next 12 months, you can look at that bottom number, that profit or the loss for the year, and you can say to yourself, does this work? Right? Because we don't want to map out this whole plan and then you see, oh, I'm actually going to lose $20,000 if I do that.
Yeah.
So it's an opportunity to correct it. That's why I call it a tool. It's a playground. And so we want to treat the budget that way. So we're going to keep on playing with the numbers until we find the right break even or profit that we're looking for. And I just want to say that every business is in a different season. So what your budget looks like is different than what my budget looks like, which is different than a listener, because you might be in a season of hockey stick growth. Like you really want to grow, whereas somebody else might be in a season where they really want to be home to pick up their kids from school every day. Right. So we're in different seasons. And so you want to make sure that your budget reflects the season of life that you're in.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that. I love how you mapped it out that like we can do it ourselves as well. So we can see, and then that having a plan, not just saying like, oh, hey, we're gonna increase it by 10% next year, and not having a plan of how we're gonna get there. Because that was kind of like what I had last year. I'm like, oh, I want to increase my profit. And my plan was like, okay, well, if my revenue isn't going up, my expenses need to go down. And so I was like thinking in that way and like talking to my bookkeeper about it. And it worked out. Like I think sometimes we forget about just having a plan, and we may have, and I think too, like I don't know if you've like heard the like whole trend of like manifestation and like just and I love that, but I think too you have to take action on top of creating any type of like wishful thinking. In my opinion.
Oh, I
So I
have
love
a
that.
hard time with manifestation. Like I want us to put it in the world and I want us to all like live it. But I think the budget is like the ultimate manifestation tool. Right.
Yeah, it's like you're living in abundance, but you're also living in abundance knowing realistically what your numbers are. And I think when we avoid it, it just gets harder, I think, over time. That's why I had to really figure out the mindset stuff about like shame over money and just really just talk about it, get someone to help me out instead of trying to be lost and not getting my numbers right. And I think that's why I've stayed in business for 3 years, right? What do they say? What is it? Like there's a percentage of business owners who don't make it past the 3-year mark or?
Oh, yeah. I can't remember the percentages. I need to have this written down somewhere. But yeah, it's past 3 years, then 5 years, and a very small amount of business owners who make it to 10 years. The statistics are staggering. And even less when we're looking at women, even less make it in business. And I think that if we can embrace this idea of being okay with having a strong money mindset, I think we have the power to be able to put our money to use. I think there's a spending gap. Like, so we're told so often that we're not good with numbers or that we're overspenders. And I realize that all these reels and stories in the in the news, it's just to get you to spend money, right? Like if we make a joke out of having an Amazon package every day, then everyone's going to have an Amazon package every day. It's great marketing. The wine industry does it too. So if we're being fed these messages in our personal lives. And then we sit down at work in our business. All of a sudden, you don't have the power to go and spend money in a confident way. You've just been told that you're an overspender or that you aren't a numbers person. And we take those stories with us. And so it's really important just to look at our money and look at our finances to say, I am able to spend money. I'm able to create a budget to achieve my goals. One thing that some clients look at on a call and they'll say, all right, where do I cut back? I'm like, cut back? You don't need to cut back. You need to spend money in order to be able to hit your financial goals. And so I think that's, again, just a powerful tool of the budget is to be able to help you map that out, especially if you're a personality type of like, I want to know that I have control over this and I want to have a plan.
Right. And then it doesn't control you. Do you think that there's any like financial metrics, like key numbers that every business owner needs to know? Maybe it's someone who is considering working with a bookkeeper and they're like, okay, you're going to start having these conversations with your bookkeeper. These are the numbers that you're going to need to know. These are the numbers that they're going to share with you that are important when it comes to your business.
Yeah, of course. So I want every single business owner to know their profit or loss each month. We put a lot of time and energy into knowing our revenue number. So a lot of us know I hit 6 figures. I'm hitting 7 figures. We know our revenue number. I care less about your revenue number than I do your profit number, right?
Yep.
So you're going to look at your profit, your income statement or your profit and loss statement, and you're going to fast forward all the way to the bottom. And I really want business owners to be looking at this every single month. So we are sending our clients their financial statements every month because I really want every business owner to look at it monthly. And now in the income statement by month, you can go back the last 12 months and curiously ask yourself what worked on months that you were profitable and what didn't work on months that you had a loss. Now, moving forward, once you've had that reflection, you can start to look at it monthly to say, okay, I lost money. It's okay. I'm not going to shame myself. I'm not going to judge, but I can look at the loss, see where I spent money, where the miss was in my revenue, and be able to plan accordingly moving forward. If I had a really profitable month, I can ask questions like, did this month give me energy? Like, did I work a lot, right? Like, did I have the right balance between my business and my personal life? Is it sustainable for me to continue to hit this revenue number at my current expense level? Do I need to hire, right? Like we can ask those questions with curiosity every time we're profitable. So that profit loss number, like that's where I want us to be spending our time.
I don't think a lot of us ask ourselves, like, we could be making more money. I mean, we can be making, like, we could have a higher profit month, but did it actually feel right? I've had months where I'm like, oh my gosh, I did so great. But when I look back at like how much I worked my ass off that month, I'm like, I don't know if I need to do this that much, or do I need to increase my virtual assistant's hours because I am taking on too many of those tasks that I don't need to be taking on. So I love how you worded that, like kind of like feeling energy, because as women, like I think we do feel like we have to do more to prove ourselves, and it can feel overwhelming and exhausting to kind of get into, the hustle. I think there's seasons. I feel like there are seasons where I'm like, okay, you know what? The slow months are coming and I see that coming in soon. I'm going to slow down eventually. This is the time where I can hustle a little bit because then the summer rolls around and I could take more vacations. I could do this. At least that's how I tend to look at it when I see my business.
I would agree. Absolutely. As long as we're actually slowing down during that time.
Yeah. Right.
Some of us just busy ourselves. The other number that I want every business owner to know, it's a little bit harder to track, but this is our monthly average cash outlay. And this is your monthly average operating expenses, plus your monthly average debt payments, plus your average monthly owner's draws. So we have to calculate our owner's draws to make sure that we're paying ourselves because that's important. And during these slow months we've referred to, we might not have the ability to just not pay ourselves. We might need to be able to have that in order to continue to live. And so I want everyone to know how much you need in order to sustain your business. So what is that cash outlay every single month? Because your landlord doesn't care if it's slow this month. Your kids don't care that it was slow this month. you know? So having that monthly cash outlay is going to give you the right amount to be able to start to plan and save. I recommend that every single client has 3 months worth of operating expenses in their savings account. So I like to have 3 accounts. So one is your operating account. So just the account that you need in order to bring money in and take money out. The next is your tax savings account, where we're going to move money over once a month. And then a fund where we're just moving money over. So we have that 3 months worth of cash outlay.
So one of the things I didn't anticipate, like whenever I first started, was when I just decided to get all of my annual subscription stuff in the same month. And so that one month was like so high in expenses. Yeah, now I know better. But that was like the first couple of years where I just realized, oh wow. And then speaking of like owner's draws, I remember I had a card from my personal expenses linked to my business and I didn't realize it was just automatically going there, and I wasn't seeing it until I got the monthly snapshot, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have this card and I don't know how it's going to affect me. So can you talk a little bit about the owner's draws, like things that were just like, maybe you're a first time small business owner and you don't have these separate accounts, like should we have those separate accounts when it comes to like personal and business?
Yes. So the IRS, this isn't a Danielle or a Kickstart Accounting rule. The IRS says that we have to have a separate business and personal account. So it is required by the IRS. Legally, we want to have them separated because if not, we're doing something called piercing the corporate veil. So we need to protect ourselves as business owners by separating our business and personal expenses. Once we have those 2 checking accounts separated, we have to be able to pay ourselves so that we can then fund our personal lives. And it is 100% okay for us to be taking draws from our business. But as an LLC or a sole proprietor, we are taking what's called owner's draws. And this, I like to say, is going up to the cash ATM of your checking account of your business. You don't pay taxes on your owner's draws. You pay taxes on the net income of your business, period, right? That is what you will pay taxes on, is the net income. So on your profit and loss statement, fast forward all the way to the bottom, that number year to date, that's what you're going to pay taxes on. So you can take as much in owner's draws as you want, as long as you have enough cash in your business to support that. A lot of times what clients will say to me is, Danielle, you keep telling me I'm profitable, but where the hell is my cash? Where did the money go? And usually the money is in personal expenses and owner's draws, because we're commingling business and personal, or we're taking those owner's draws. So we want to ensure that our owner's draws is not exceeding the profit in our business. We only want to pull out the profit. We do not want to pull out the profit plus, because then we're going to create a loss in cash in the business.
Do you think there's a way we can use these numbers to like set our goals, like strategically, like make sure that we're using kind of these numbers to set financial goals for our business?
Absolutely. So even if you didn't want to do the whole budget exercise we talked about, right? Like maybe that just feels like so much to you, you can still set small goals. You can say, I want to create enough profit in my business so I can pay myself $50,000 a year or $75,000 a year. So in order for me to pay myself $50,000 a year, here's how much I have to have in revenue so that I can still pay my business expenses and be able to pay myself. So this is the power of having a team. So I would encourage anyone who is thinking through, like, I really want to put together some financial goals, but I don't know how to back into it. Find a team that you can say, hey, how do I figure out how much to pay myself? Like, how do I back into this number? Like, I want to pay myself $50,000. So how much do I need to bring in revenue? Your bookkeeper is not going to know. They're not going to know how to read your mind, because every business owner is at a different spot. So they're not going to know what you're thinking or how to help you. But if you just say, hey, I need some help, generally your team wants to help you. And just asking like, hey, I want to pay myself this. I want to pay myself, my family needs me to make $50,000 a year. How much do I need to bring in revenue in order to support that goal? Or I want to grow my profit by X percent because I want to hire a new team member. Well, start to save for that amount so that you can bring on that new team member with confidence. So think about what season of your business you're in. Like, where do you want to see your business go? And I call this like setting an intention. So when we're setting goals, we need to set an intention first. Like, where do I want to see my business go and why? Now, once I know that question, I can start to map out what goals are going to help get me there.
Yeah, I love the why because sometimes we can make these arbitrary goals for how much we want to make, and there's like no real reason for it. I've even have to ask clients too whenever we're talking about money and finances, and they're like, "Well, I really want to," especially like, especially if they had maybe they made like a really high revenue year one year. Especially a lot of my clients who during 2020 they were doing like in the fitness industry, they were really popular. Like things were really great for them in the online space. Then come a couple of years later, things were opening up, things were a little bit different. And they were struggling with the fact that this year was different. They were not making as much. And we were talking about mentally how to prepare for, these kinds of things in business where it's like not every year you're going to have to see like the trend going up. And it is okay to ask yourself, like, why? Is it just the only reason? I think we think like trending up means positive, but like staying the same means negative. And I don't know if you have a different perspective on that, like, especially when it comes to like maybe having those years where just because of just how the world was, things were really highly profitable compared to some years where it's just like, nothing's wrong in your business. It's just not. It's just there. It's just the season of it where it like you're like just going steady on your business.
Yeah. And do we want to grow and why? I have a client example that I want to walk you through because I think it'll be really helpful to see kind of how the seasons work in play. So my client came to me a few years ago and she said, she wasn't a client yet, but as she signed up with us, she said, I really want you to teach me how to run this business at a loss. I'm like, okay, odd request, but I'll help you. So we did what we call the catch up that we talked about earlier, put all our transactions into QuickBooks. And what we realized was that she was profitable, but she was commingling business and personal. And she wasn't realizing that her owner's draws was making her feel like she didn't have any money in her business. Once we got everything separated and we could see the true progress of the business, her entire mindset changed. And it was really amazing to watch. She said, okay, I'm profitable. I can do this. Like, I can be a real business owner. I am going to work my tail off and I'm going to build this thing. She went out and signed up for conferences and mastermind. She networked. She held all these live events. I mean, she was everywhere and spending a ton of money that year. And we watched her have hockey stick growth that year. And that was her intention. She wanted to grow this business. She wanted to make this a thing, right? She was moving from freelancer to business owner. The next year, she said, I really want to buy a house. I'm ready to put down some roots. I need to buy a home. And so we helped her change the spending in her business so that she was taking more in owner's draws. We did an expense grading worksheet with her where we cut back her other expenses. So she was spending intentionally. She ended up saving to buy a house. We got to celebrate that with her. It was so cool. And then a few months after she moved in, her mom got sick. And her intention changed. She said, I can't scale this business when my mom is sick. I'm not even sure how much I could work in the business. And so she hired a team to come in and help support her business. And so her profits were low. Profits were really low, but she was in a season where she needed to get support. And so she brought in a team to help her. And after her mom passed, and she was so lucky to be able to spend that time with her mom. I mean, so lucky. after her mom passed, her business goals changed again. She said, okay, now I can refocus on, like, I don't want to let my team go. Like, I can't let them go. They helped me through this time, which means I have to regrow my revenue. And that needs to be my focus so that I can start hockey stick growing again. So your life is going to change and the seasons are going to change and what you need from your business is going to change. So that's why it's just so important to know that and see that.
Yeah, yeah. Instead of just like being so fixated on this like growth when maybe it's not even aligned with where you're currently at, or just even just like financial trends that are happening in, in the industry. Like it might just be not the best time to be in a growth year. But yeah, like I think a lot of us can get stuck in like the growth mindset and never really, as business owners, using it. A lot of us want financial freedom, but then are we really having freedom if we're like so fixated on these numbers instead of it actually working for our life and the season that we're in?
Yeah, absolutely.
You mentioned like healthy spending, and you mentioned like with this client, what were some things that maybe she had or other clients have had that you like consider healthy spending practices to increase that business like profitability?
Yeah. So healthy spending is like my favorite topic because, like we said before, when we're talking about the budget, we have to spend money to make money, but we don't want to overspend. So we have a whole worksheet that I will invite the audience to download. It's kickstartaccountinginc.com/healthy. We did a podcast episode on our podcast, Business by the Books. It's episode 158. So if anybody, like I said, I could talk about this forever. So if anybody wants more on this topic, but healthy spending is the idea that we need to be able to spend money to live within the intention of our business. So let's take advertising and marketing, for instance. If our goal is to grow the business, then we need to be spending between 8 and 10% of our sales on advertising and marketing expenses. Now, most people, when they say to me, I'm not hitting my revenue goals, I'm like, show me your P&L and I'll show you why. I'll tell you. I can tell you 2 seconds why.
Yeah.
It's usually because we're not reinvesting back into the business enough money to actually hit those goals. Growing revenue is your goal. Unless you have an amazing referral pipeline and you are growing exponentially through referrals, we want to be spending 8 to 10% of our revenue in marketing. And this includes marketing consultants, marketing software, our email management, podcasting, right? Like whatever your marketing might be, it includes all of the marketing added together. Another example is our operating expenses. Like we have to operate our business. If you're doing everything manually because you're too cheap to buy a software, like for the love of God, buy the software. Right?
For real. No, I mean, you're preaching. Like it's insane how sometimes, I was that person. I'm not going to even lie that I would be like, I don't know if I could spend this. And then once I integrated whatever software I needed, that's the best damn thing. Like I was just like, wow, now I have so much time.
There's a better way to do things, there's a better way to onboard clients or offboard clients or serve clients or do our marketing or, we need to have those tools. So we want to see around 8% of our sales going to operating expenses. We have to operate our business. We need outside services. So we need to have a VA, an accountant, a bookkeeper, an OBA. Like we need to have these roles in our business. And so we want to see about 8 to 10% of our sales in outside services. Now, this is going to look different for you depending on what location you are in. So if you're somewhere where you have very high rent just based on where you live, you might have facility costs that are really high, or you might be doing a co-working space or have no workspace at all, right? So it depends on your business, where you're working from, and the location you're in. But it's okay to be spending 10% of our sales in facility costs. And then we want to get paid, and we need to pay our people who are working with us. And so we want to see 30 to 50% of our sales going to payroll, because if you're an S Corp, you are on payroll and you need to get paid a reasonable compensation. And so that will look like almost 50% of your sales going back up to payroll. Is that helpful? Does that make sense?
No, yeah,
Okay.
that is really helpful because I think a lot of us, we think like we shouldn't spend any money at all in order to make money in our business. And even just things like delegation, as you said, advertising, like things like that, that like operating expenses, things like that. Like I no longer fear like spending money in my business if I know it is going to give me back more time or help me reach, the goals that I have in mind for myself. Very different, like to kind of like, wait, this year we're in the season of we're going to buy a house. So that looks very different this season compared to like last year. So yeah, like I love that we kind of touched on how every season is going to be different. Like really rearrange your budget for what it like that forecasting for the financial goals that you have set. Are there any other tools or resources for budgeting? I know you mentioned your podcast. What's the name of the podcast again?
Business by the books.
Business. Do you have anything like if there's something that like goes beyond like maybe like the free budgeting spreadsheet that could also be helpful for people?
Absolutely. So if you go to kickstartaccountinginc.com, you can book a call. We always start with bookkeeping services first. So we need to lay the foundation. Once the foundation is laid, that's where we can start to look at budgeting and forecasting. So when we work with our clients, they receive the financial statements and the snapshot every single month. That's when you can then add on a budget where we're doing the Excel document for you. So when I was talking about Excel and you started to break out in hives, there's a better way. Like we can do it for you where you're just getting a completed budget and then you know where you're spending it. So we're taking all your goals and creating the budget. And then we have CFO services. So if you're looking for that ongoing forecasting where we're working with you month over month to look at the next 12 months, you can go to kickstartaccountinginc.com/CFO to learn more about the tool of forecasting. But yeah, free resource is Business by the Books. So every week we come on, talk about how to use your numbers to manage your business. But we love working with our clients. And so if you need help, you do not have to hang up the superhero cape, hang it up and get help, because I don't know how to do what you do. We all need each other. And I hung up my superhero cape a long time ago. I have help in every area of my business. That's not my strong suit. And I happily yeah, that's my weakness. Somebody else do it.
Yeah. There comes a time where it's like you have to, you have, like you said, put that super cape, to give it a rest and let somebody else wear that they're truly wearing it because that is their superpower, right?
Yeah.
I have a final question, and that is like, are there any financial trends that entrepreneurs should be aware of, or any way that people can educate themselves on financial trends that maybe it is directly working with the team?
Yeah, financial trends. I'm going to say probably the exact opposite of what you're expecting. I believe that we don't have a lot of financial trends. I believe that the boring, tried and true approaches are the secret to success. And I've read a lot of Warren Buffett's work and these wealth builders who believe in the old school techniques. They're not trending. They're not getting all the likes on the reels. They're not the most popular thing. They're boring. And we're always looking for the secret pill or the movie star moment. And I just don't believe that they exist. I took my daughter to Italy for her graduation. And on the way back, she said to me, she's like, Mom, I really thought I was going to know what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And I was like, oh, good Lord, that's what we've done to our kids. At 18, you thought a 2-week trip. But it's this movie star moment. And
Eat, Pray, Love kind of moment that she was expecting.
It doesn't happen. So we just need to do the boring stuff. So you need to look at your financial statements every month. You need to have a great team behind you that can help celebrate your wins and commiserate on the losses. And, it's just not going to be that exciting every month. You might have some consistency in your numbers and you might think, well, gee whiz, what am I missing? What do I do differently? What am I missing? You're not missing anything. But if you stop looking, that's where the real risk is. If you're not looking at your numbers every month, if you're not doing the boring things, like just tuning in, taking a clarity break, you have you run the risk of missing. Like something could have been sticking out to you that you could have got your attention to help you straighten the line back in your business, but you missed it. We had a client who a few years ago, she added on a second revenue stream. And thank God she was watching her financials every month because we were watching her debt increase and we were watching her expense increase. Here's what was crazy. We were watching the revenue skyrocket. I mean, revenue was through the roof, but it was not profitable.
Mm.
It wasn't profitable. So her debt was increasing. She called me. It was about 6 months in. She's like, Danielle, I have to get rid of this. I'm going to bankrupt my family and my family can't afford that. And so she did away with the whole thing. What if you're not looking? Like, what's the risk you run in your business? So anyway, I'm on my soapbox, but just do the boring things. Sit with your financial statements. I believe in taking clarity breaks. So for me, that's like taking a walk with my dogs, but get away from your computer, get away from all the sound. I always consider bookkeeping and financials, it's a done with you service, right? So bookkeeping, we send you all the information. We can't make you take the information, right? Like you have to open it down. You have to look at the financials. You have to read the snapshot. And then you have to consider what are the numbers doing for you? Like what decisions do you want to make? And we get so busy. And so I just slow down, think about it with intentionality, ask yourself why. And when it feels fancy, probably it's too good to be true.
Yeah. Do you think for your CFO package, is that where you can help with, let's just say someone's just doing kind of like I forgot what all the packages are. I know I'm in one of them. I know I'm one of them. But like the CFO package, is that where, because I know we were talking a lot about like reflecting on the numbers and seeing your trends. Is the CFO package, do you highlight certain things like with your client that you were noticing that her revenue was going really high, but the debt was like going really high too.
Yeah.
Did you call that out? Like, were you guys calling that out? Was she in the CFO package? Like, is that something that you do? Or was it like she also, again, because I think you guys encourage all of your clients, regardless of what tier they are, to really reflect on their money every month. But I'm just kind of curious if that's like an added thing on the
That's
CFO
a good question.
package.
Good question. So our CFO package is, yes, more hands-on where we're talking about your goals. We're in your face more often, and our CFO clients tend to book more calls because they're more engaged with wanting to reforecast every month. So because it's part of their package, they get on the call every month. But in every single one of our packages, we include a call, and they might be quarterly or they might be monthly. And this is where I say, and this is for any service, not just ours.
Mm-hmm.
People ask me, what's the return on an investment? And the question always gives me pause for a moment, right? Because the return on investment is whatever you make it, right? You get the bookkeeping, right? Like that's no brainer. You get the bookkeeping. Taxes can be done at the end of the year. You get the financial statements. You get the snapshot. So you always have the option to go read it, right? You have the option to go read it, reflect, do it on your own. But if you are the person who takes the Calendly link and you book every single quarter or you book every single month, you ask your team questions, you engage with them, they'll engage back with you. Because, and I say this on behalf of all bookkeepers and CPAs, but on behalf of my entire industry, every business owner is different. Like the questions you have is so different than the questions that somebody in the audience is going to have. And so we try every month to bring attention to something, but we don't know, unless you're talking to us, we don't know what your goal is. So I just encourage everyone to talk to your money team, book the calls on a regular basis. Even if you're like, I have no questions, like book the call, because that's when we're going to talk about it and things just naturally come out of human connection. So whoever you're working with, even if it's not our team, book the call, talk to them. But our team is really cool and they really like talking to clients.
Yeah. And I think you guys have an episode of like questions you can ask your bookkeeper because I really liked that episode. I'm going to like put it in the description because
Right.
I was like, I don't even know what to ask, but I love that you're encouraging me, Monica, to like book those calls more
I know.
often.
When we get talking to you, like, Monica, did you book a call?
You book your call. Yeah. Cause sometimes I just feel like it's kind of like, wait, like you don't want to ask a stupid question, but it's like,
No.
there aren't no stupid questions, right? So I love that you're encouraging that because yeah, and that you guys you're constantly creating content to answer some of those or give people insight into some of those questions that they may have. So I love that. If someone wants to work with you, where can they find you? Where can they find your team?
Yeah, kickstartaccountinginc.com is the best place. You can book a call there. You can download the budget template that I mentioned, kickstartaccountinginc.com/budget. Check out the podcast, Business by the Books.
Awesome. Well, Danielle, thank you so much for being here and answering all the questions about business finance.
Of course. Thank you.